Everyone, my name is Justine. It is June 17th today and I have finally finished planting the garden. It's been a wild spring, so I thought I would do the first garden tour of the season and show you what I've planted. Alright, so starting off here we have the potato patch. I have 3 different types of potatoes planted, a fingerling, a purple variety, and a red variety. I can't exactly remember the names, but as you can see they're doing pretty good. This middle row, all of them look like they've sprouted. This row here to the right doesn't look so good, but I think it's because this whole back area, if I can point here, this whole back area here is a low-laying area. So because we've had so much spring this year, I think that these potato starts, the seed potatoes, I think they might have gotten like waterlogged or have maybe rotted out. I see one potato at the back that's come up, but the rest of them have been a little, they just haven't come up yet. So we'll see if they end up coming up in the next couple weeks. This row over here looks pretty good, and they're all different varieties too, so it could just be that, you know, this middle variety is just more prolific than the other two, but only time will tell. So this bed here is one of the raised garden beds. So along the trellis I have moonflower and Spanish flag that are hopefully going to grow up the trellis, and we'll cover it in flowers and it'll be really pretty. That's what I'm hoping for anyways. This bed is, I would say, predominantly a perennial bed. So I have strawberries and asparagus as the perennial. So you can see the asparagus here, the strawberries here, and these have all started to set fruit, which I'm really excited for. And then some things that I've kind of interplanted in between. I have chamomile here. There are weeds, which I'll just pick some of these now. But there is cilantro, which is right there. More weeds. More cilantro here. More chamomile over here. And then there's also some basil. I planted some dill as well, but I haven't seen any of the dill pop up yet, so maybe the seeds were bad. I'll probably try planting some more, just so that I have some dill in this bed as well. But then I also included some sunflowers just to have like a nice feature when you first walk into the garden. And look at that pretty strawberry flower there. So yeah, this is my perennial bed, and I'm hoping that the asparagus kind of takes over and that the strawberries take over. Those two are really great companion plants. Then in this bed here, I'll just take these off so we can take a peek inside. So this is my Brassica bed. And hopefully you can see, but there's just a sea of brassicas. I hope they're in focus. There we go. So in this bed I have broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and then interplanted I have carrots at the front. And then I also have, if I can get back there, there's some beets kind of planted in the middle there. And also I think these are weeds here, but they kind of look like they were all planted together. Maybe they're not? I really can't tell, so maybe I'll just leave those for right now. Oh, and I also have some bok choy just at the front here. And I put this row cover over my brassicas because we have a really bad flea beetle problem. You can even potentially see one on the leaf there. And you can definitely see the damage. So the flea beetles have done all this damage. I've still eaten these, so they're still good to eat. I just wash them really well. And if they're really damaged, I'll just kind of break them off. But they've mostly been attacking the bok choy, probably because the bok choy was the smallest plant. They were just starts when I put them in here, whereas the other plants were more established. But this bed is looking so good. Oh, and there's also some lettuce planted at the very edges of either side. I just have some romaine lettuce planted. These are by far the best brassicas I have ever planted. I will definitely be doing the covered garden bed again next year. And not only, I mean, There are flea beetles in here right now, but the damage obviously isn't as bad as it has been in previous years. Plus, this will also help keep the cabbage butterflies, whatever they are, the caterpillars from doing damage, because they can do damage to the adult plants as well. So this will help prevent them from doing any damage to this bed. And I just saw a tick. I don't know where it went. I'm sure I'll find some on me later. Alright, so before we go into the tour, I thought I would show you some of the varieties that I'm growing, some new, some old, but ones that I either really like or I'm really excited for. So I don't have these organized in any way, but I'm growing some Black Beauty tomatoes, which are the world's darkest tomato apparently. And spice jalapenos, I grew these last year, love them, so I have quite a few of these plants this year. Greg's Grande jalapeno, I think I bought these last year and I didn't have much luck growing them, but I'm going to try again. I have 2 different varieties of green jalapeno, and then I have the lemon spice jalapeno as well. Next we have the Prairie Fire tomato. This is just such a beautiful looking tomato, so I obviously couldn't resist getting it. And then loofah squash. So I've been growing these now for, how long have I been growing them for? 3 years, I would say, and I have never had luck, but this year they all look good, so fingers crossed that they actually grow. Apparently, loofahs just don't like being transplanted, and because I live in zone 3, I have to start these really early and then I have to transplant them into the garden, so apparently they just don't like that transplant. But the plants I'll show you in a bit, they do look pretty good this year. I have lemon squash, so we planted 2 of these last year and they were very prolific. They give you like lemon-sized squash. They don't store very well, so it was basically we picked them and then we ate them that night because we found that they would go bad within a couple days on the counter or wherever we had them stored. But these are super nice because they were just, you know, a single person sized squash, so they're great for meals in the summertime. Then the fail-proof zucchini. These are already, I'll show you in a second, these are already the biggest squash that we have growing in the garden. These are just the classic green zucchini. I haven't had a single year where I haven't had a million zucchini, so these are very prolific. Next up, birdhouse gourd. I planted these last year for the first time and I didn't do anything with them. They grew up the trellis, they looked really beautiful, but I just left them, and I was not the most tidy gardener in the fall, so I left them on the trellis and they dried out all winter. And when I was cleaning up the garden this spring, these gourds were still on the trellis and I didn't realize how rock solid they are. So these are actually great, like for making bottles or making birdhouses. I actually saw these in a birdhouse making book. So yeah, these, I'm gonna grow these again and I'm actually gonna make some birdhouses out of them this year because they are so solid once they're dried out, which is pretty crazy considering they're a gourd. Next up, Kajari melon. Jess from Roots and Refuge has been talking about these and just saying how they're her favorite melon for a really long time. So I've been trying to grow these as well over the last, I would say, 2 summers. Have not had any luck. Once again, they don't seem to like being transplanted into the garden. But once again, this year the plants do look a little bit better. So fingers crossed this is the year I'll actually get to try one for the first time. Next we have lemon drop melon. So it's just a yellow watermelon. Looks pretty cool. Haven't tried these before yet either. I really like growing melons in gourds, if you can't tell. Then next up we have Lee Lanao Sweet Glow, which is supposed to be a really good watermelon as well. And it says, the most perfect orange fleshed watermelon we have tried. I mean, and that's coming from Baker Creek, so must be good. Then I'm trying the Haramaju melon. This one is planted in the garden, but it doesn't look the greatest, so I don't have super high hopes that I'll get any of these this year. But that being said, the timing of these is 90 days, so about a week ago, I would say, I went through the entire garden after I had already planted it and just planted a bunch of melon seeds that have anywhere from like 70 to 90 days and just planted the seeds just to see if they would come up and grow, and that I would potentially have a harvest from those plants instead of the ones that I started indoors and transplanted outside. I feel like they tend to do a little bit better that way. I mean, some things like zucchini are foolproof, but other melons do seem to be a little bit more picky about how they're transplanted or when they're transplanted. I tried this for the first time. It's Galeux des Cygnes. It's an heirloom, I guess, is it a squash? It's a squash plant. So it says that it's great for baking in soups, and it just looks so cool. Like, look at that. And then these are just some of my classics that I always grow every year, and almost every year I've gotten plant or fruits off of them. So I just have regular honeydew melon, and then regular cantaloupe as well. These are once again fail-proof. I feel like I have them every year, and they're so great because they're once again person size, so one person can eat an entire fruit in a sitting. So, and they're always so sweet. Growing melons in your own garden, there's nothing better. And then the Kukuzi gourd, I grew these last year. I probably had like 3 or 4 plants on the vine, and one of them did get huge, and they actually taste pretty good. Definitely, I wouldn't say my favorite, but they give enough interest to the garden, and they taste good enough that I'm going to grow them again. And then another new to me variety is this okra. So this is the Jing orange okra plant. I had 3 of them planted in the garden. One of them has died. These did not seem to like being planted in pots. I don't know if I overwatered them, underwatered them, or what, but they did not look great until I planted them into the garden, and then I think something ate one of them. So far I'm down 1. And then this is last but not least, this was my absolute favorite thing that we grew last year, shishito peppers. These are amazing if you put them in a pan, fry them with oil until they get blistered, and then you just put some really coarse salt on top. They are to die for. I actually grew these. My partner bought me an AeroGarden, which is like a aquaponic garden or hydroponic garden that just like fits on your kitchen counter, and I grew these in it over the winter, and I think we got like 25 peppers off of it, off of one single plant in the aquaponic garden, and they're just so good. So these I highly recommend planting, and those are some of the things I'm the most excited about. But let's go on our tour. Alright, just to give another visual of the garden, there are 3 beds. So there's this one here, and this one over here. And as you can probably see already, there is a ton of grass growing through. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know that I have struggled with quackgrass since I started growing in this garden. When we first bought this house, there was no grass in the garden at all, but by the time we got possession of the property, this whole entire garden space was lush green grass that was more lush than the green grass outside of the garden. So I've been battling with the quackgrass this is the 6th summer growing in this space. So if you watch one of my videos from last year, I think I talked about it, I tried the no-till gardening method. So I laid down cardboard, and then I laid down about 4 inches of compost on top of that cardboard. And within a couple of weeks, the grass was already growing through. I watched a great video on YouTube the other day about quackgrass. It was very informative, and that quackgrass is extremely hard to get rid of. It grows on a rhizome. You break that rhizome, you essentially just get a new plant. So you can't just pull it up. You do have to either till continuously, which would mean that you don't have a garden space because you would have to till every couple weeks. So I'd have to basically give up my garden beds for an entire season, which to me would be incredibly heartbreaking, which I'm sure most of you can also empathize with. So I decided this year to try my own method, which was I whipper snip, so I cut the grass really, really short, and then I added hay, like a thick layer of hay or straw on top. So I would say there's probably about 4 inches. But the thing with quackgrass is it's extremely resilient. It can grow through wood, it can grow through plywood, so a couple inches of straw mulch aren't going to stop it, but I was hoping that this would at least stop it enough so that any seedlings or seeds that I had started would at least be able to get past the mulch, and then I could add more mulch on top to just try to smother the grass. And I mean, so far it's not looking so great. And one of the things that I learned that I didn't know before in that video was that quackgrass actually gives off a chemical that stops other plants from growing or being as productive, which totally makes sense. I just figured it was because the quackgrass was taking up some of the nutrients that the other plants could then not take up, but it's actually releasing a chemical. So my garden I feel like my garden probably has never reached its full potential because of the quackgrass. But at this point, I feel like this is all I can do. I was trying really hard not to go till the garden because I do really believe in the benefits of the no-till method. But I also feel like I need to realize that no-till doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work for every soil type. But I want to see if this would help, and I would say that it doesn't. I feel like I probably should have tilled the garden this year, but we'll see how it goes. As you can see, I need to do some cleaning up, but we'll start with this bed over here. So on these 3 tomato cages, I know these tomato cages are hated by a lot of people. I don't mind them. I find that if you put them into the ground, yes, they're flimsy, but I've never had a tomato fall over. So I feel like that's a win. But these 3 plants here are Barry's Crazy Cherry. And then the rest of this bed is filled with tomatoes and peppers that were just extras. I had this whole space here that I didn't have anything to plant in, so I planted all of my extra tomatoes and peppers that I had left over. And then on this side, this is kind of tough to see, but there are onions planted in this bed, but it's being taken over by crabgrass. So you can see that there's like an onion right here. And it's like wrapped around itself. There we go. So you can see that there is an onion there, and I just have to like come and pull, but like I said in like a few minutes ago, this isn't going to do much. The quackgrass is just going to continue to grow through. But yeah, it does kind of suck because I can't tell what's an onion and what's quackgrass at the moment. But yeah, we'll see how this bed turns out. So then along here I have, I think that's a hollyhock flower there. And then, yeah, there are peppers here. I'm just trying to make sure that all of these plants get enough sun through the mulch. So yeah, hollyhock there. Then we have cuckoozy squash and loofah squash growing on this trellis. So the smaller plants like this one here are the loofah, and they are still pretty small. Oh, it looks like is this an onion? No, that's just quackgrass. So yeah, this is a loofah here. Once again, just making sure that it's not being shaded out by anything else. Wanted to make sure that it gets lots of extra sun. But yeah, this is, oh, there we go. This is looking really good. Last year when I planted all of my loofahs, they all kind of shriveled, and you know how squash sometimes their stems crack and then they just end up dying? That happened last year, but this year they're all looking pretty good. And same thing with this one over here. Just trying to at least press the quackgrass out of the way. And then these plants here, this one's a little sun scalded here. You can see that I might not have hardened them off well enough, but other than that, it's looking really good. These are the cuckoozy squash. So this trellis will be covered with hopefully loofahs and cuckoosies. And then over here, I planted a cucamelon, which was an impulse buy at the garden center the other day. And it is, I've just kind of been wrapping it around here so it starts to climb. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. It's hard to tell, but there are 2 rows here. And in these rows, I have calypso beans. Let me see if I can go find the package for them. But these are what the calypso beans look like. They're also called orca beans, and they're drying beans. And I couldn't resist getting these. They're so cute. And they're orca beans, so as a marine biologist, I obviously had to give them a try. But yeah, so I have 2 rows of those here. Then along this trellis here, I have two different types of cucumbers. One is there we go, cucumber petit piquel. It is a pickling cucumber. And then this one is a martini cucumber. I was actually looking for the salt and pepper cucumbers, but I couldn't find them anywhere. And I figured that one at least looks like a salt and pepper, so maybe it'll have a similar flavor. I really liked those last year. And then on the other side of this bed, there is a Cosmo, then 2 rows of corn. And then I have just like these random pockets of areas where I planted seeds just to see if anything would come up. Nothing's come up so far, but we'll see. Then I have this is one of the melons that looks really sad. And this is kind of what I was trying to explain with the loofah earlier. Sometimes the stems of these melons and squash get really thin and then they like almost crack. I don't know if you were able to see that, but then like you can see how not healthy this plant is. Like this is probably just going to shrivel and die. This one is not even attached anymore. I probably just did that, but I did plant some seeds here because I knew that these plants weren't looking great. So I just ended up adding some more melon seeds to this little pocket of soil here in hopes that it would grow. And then I have another squash there. I don't remember exactly where I planted everything. Alright, so on this bed here, I have beans growing along the side, which I did see some starting to sprout yesterday. I don't see any over here at the moment, but I have them all along the side of this trellis. Then on the ends, I have soy or edamame growing as well. And then in the middle, I have mushrooms. So in this bed, I planted wine cap mushrooms, and I can show you what that looks like. So underneath here, I did a layer of mulch, and then I did a layer of mushroom spawn, which you can see here if my camera focuses. Oops. Maybe not. Maybe. Anyways, you can kind of see it in my hands there. Then I did another layer of mulch on top, and this is to help keep moisture in because these mushrooms do like being moist, as most mushrooms do. Wine cap mushrooms don't mind being in the sun, but they do prefer shade. So as the beans grow up this trellis, they'll create shade for the mushrooms. And then I'll just have to kind of move the plants to the side and grab them as they grow. And then continuing over here, I have some more melons there. I have another melon on the other side of this trellis. And then I have some lemongrass. I don't know why I did this, but I just planted like a single lemongrass seed in each pot that I did. So I literally only have 4 lemongrass seeds, whereas it's a grass. I should have just planted an entire batch of them. So I'll remember that for next time. And then along the sides here, I did see some beans on the other side starting to sprout. So yeah, you can see there that there's a bean starting to sprout. So hopefully this area will be covered by beans soon. I'm really excited for the way that this is hopefully gonna look with all the beans growing on top. Then I have an area of more squash here, more squash and melons. I'm just gonna walk across here. And then over here, I just planted some sunflowers, so those are starting to come up now as well. And then on this side, I have the garlic that I planted in probably October of last year. They're actually looking pretty good, and not a lot of grass has grown through. I did mulch these pretty early in the spring. Maybe that's the trick, is to getting out here before the quack grass gets out here, but we'll see. Then this bed, we have a bunch of peppers. I don't think any of them are flowering yet, but the grass looks like it's pretty under control in this area, but then it gets kind of bad in this area. So as you can see, there is a tomato here, but it is being overshadowed by grass. So in this case, I probably will I know that this isn't going to stop the grass from growing, but at least it'll give the tomato a little bit more sunlight so that it can hopefully grow a little bit bigger, and then it will overshadow the quackgrass. And then same thing here. And it's so hard because I don't want to accidentally pull up the wrong plant. But like this whole area could probably use another layer of mulch, to be honest, which I probably will do today. I leave for 3 weeks for work, so I'm gonna try to remulch as much of the garden as I can. And I planted some, I think these are asters, which are once again being overgrown by quackgrass. And I did put irrigation in, but we've had so much rain so far this year that I don't even know if we'll need it. Then I have some bigger tomatoes here, which I'll have to tie up. Maybe I'll do that right now. And then for tomatoes, I have 4 sun golds, 4 San Marzanos. I think some of the ones at the end here are Romas. I like using these for my plants. I would just have a pot like this, and then I would just put this on this side. And they don't rot or anything, or I haven't had that issue. And then you don't have to worry about writing on the plant, which I do. As you can see, this had a nasturtium in it. But then you can just put it on your trellis like that. So that makes it easy. So I have bush beefsteak. This one is a indigo rose, and then at the very end there's Romas. Then I have some more asters here. The flea beetles tend to love these, so we'll see how they do. And then here at the end, this was a nasturtium that was looking so good, and the flea beetles have gotten to it, and it's starting to look not so great. There are new leaves, it looks like, at the bottom, but we'll see if it actually ends up coming up. I haven't had great luck with nasturtiums because of the flea beetles, and I don't want to put them in my Brassica bed because then I don't see them. And I feel like the point of nasturtiums is to have them trailing and to have them, bring color to the garden, and if they're under cover, you don't see them. So to help trellis my tomatoes, I just have this like stretchy green, it almost feels like flag tape. I'm going to use this to tie them up. So as I'm doing this, I'm also pulling off any branches that are within probably the last 5 inches from the base, and then any suckers as well. So suckers, if you don't know, are any branches that are coming off kind of in if you think about it as the main stalk is the body, and then the branches are the arms, off of the shoulder. Anything in that area you can just pinch off, and this will help your plants use all their energy to produce fruit and to get bigger. These last ones are still pretty small, so I'm going to leave them for right now. I'm also just going to take some more mulch and put it in these areas that need it. This is some mulch that I got. It's straw that I got from an organic farmer in the area. And I find that getting a bale of hay or straw for $3 rather than paying $21 for the ones that you get at the garden center is a way better deal. So over here I have all of my peppers. There's also one row of tomatoes kind of growing along the other side of the trellis, but they're not quite close enough to actually use the trellis. But I figured if they do get big enough, what I can do is just add a bigger piece of that tape around them and just hold them up that way. We'll see how it goes. But the peppers are doing pretty good. But as you can also see, the grass is definitely growing through here as well. But they do seem to be getting bigger. Then on this trellis, wow, this has grown so much. Here, I'll flip over this way so you can get it better without my shadow. This is looking so good. So this here is a birdhouse gourd, and it'll hopefully trellis up this trellis. And then on this side, I think this is a Kajari melon there, or it could actually be a loofah. I had an extra loofah, so I think I threw it over here. And then on this side, these are the Kajari melons here that hopefully will start climbing up this as soon. But you can see that they look really good. And then this is another birdhouse gourd here, also looking really good. So much grass. And then there's a little moonflower here, which I want to give as much light to as possible so that it gets big. Another unfortunate thing about quackgrass is once it's in your garden, it's like so good at creating these rhizomes that if you try to pull it out when your plants are already planted, you can actually end up taking out all your plants too and disturbing their roots. And depending on what it is, it might not like that. Then over here we have some more melons, more squash. So I think over here we have the butternut squash, a pumpkin maybe as well, and then behind here there's another squash right there. This is my little zucchini patch here. That zucchini is all like it already has flowers starting to grow on it. So yeah, these are also looking really good. Then here I have sweet peas, which I've been hoping that these would kind of climb up these. There we go. This trellis that I made here, but so far some of them have, I guess. But then in each of these I also have mushrooms growing. So the idea with this one is that the sweet peas will grow up the entire trellis there, and that the mushrooms will be shaded on the inside. But yeah, I mean, these are starting to vine. Yeah, they definitely are. So we'll see how these look. And then I have some cosmos kind of planted throughout the garden as well. Oh, I forgot to show you this. These are my eucalyptus. 3 years I've been trying to grow eucalyptus, and they've never gotten bigger than like a centimeter tall when I'm growing them from seed. So this year the same thing happened. They grew to about a centimeter tall. They started to crisp up and die. And then I just did a bunch of research, and they need like really intense light. They do not like to dry out, but they also don't like being super wet. So I babied them like heck. So I had a grow light on them that was literally touching the plant to make sure that they're getting plenty of light. I watered them every day. I grew them in soil blocks, so I watered them every day. And then I actually got eucalyptus this year. So I guess that's the trick, is they just like being babied. Then continuing down here, we have more cosmos. This one actually has a little flower bud on the end. So that's exciting. Lots of weeds, lots of grass, more melons. And then in here, if you can squint, there are corn growing here. So the corn is in, I think, 4 rows or 5 rows in this bed here. So the plan is to just let them get a little bit bigger And then once again, mulch the heck out of this bed, and then hopefully kind of smother the weeds just enough for the plants to get big. And then this here, another plant I'm really excited about growing. I have 5 artichokes. So you can see them here. It seems like they've had a little bit of transplant shock since I've planted them, but this leaf, actually no, not that one. This leaf here, the really spiky one, is a new one, and there's actually one more growing in the middle there. So they don't look super great, like this one especially, but that is a new leaf since I've transplanted. So hopefully they just need a little bit to recuperate before getting a little bit bigger. Have a black-eyed Susan here, another melon of some sort there, another trellis here that has sweet peas growing on it with the mushrooms inside as well. Then I have edamame here. This was the only edamame seedling that I had that has actually grown. I started a bunch and then a bunch of the seeds just didn't germinate, so this is the only one that did. And I just have it growing up this single bamboo stalk here, or skewer, whatever you want to call them. But it seems like it doesn't want to climb. So I don't know if that's just because I'm not doing it right, or maybe it needs more. I don't know exactly how these climb. The sweet peas have tendrils, so the tendrils can wrap around like really small things, whereas I don't know how edamame grows. I should look this up to see, maybe this isn't going to suffice. And then over here I have more corn and more nasturtiums that have been eaten by flea beetles. But yeah, that is the June 17th garden tour. I'll be gone for the next 3 weeks, so we'll see what the garden looks like then. So the last thing I'm going to do today is a hive check. This hive here has been treated for mites for the last 2 weeks. This is their last day. I treated them with an organic mite treatment called Formic Pro. It's just formic acid, which is naturally occurring. So that has been in here for the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to take that out today. Unfortunately, the last hive, the third hive at the end there, was alive, but because I treated them with Formic Pro when they were still maybe on the smaller side, they actually absconded and they are no longer in the hive. So I only have 1 hive currently. So I'm going to add a honey super and hope that they don't swarm. And yeah, I'll show you what it looks like. So I leave for 3 weeks, so I want to make sure that this hive has a lot of room to put honey so that they don't swarm. And then these 2 hives, I'm going to have to figure out something to do with them. This one is full of ants at the moment because I haven't cleaned it out, so I think I'm going to do my best to clean them out today, but I'm going to deal with this hive first. So this hive I've had, I think, since the beginning. This is my first hive. They are not nice bees. They're actually quite mean and quite aggressive, but they're the bees that do the best. They always survive the winter, and yeah, so I've been struggling with re-cleaning them. I mean, there has been a new queen, but yeah, they're not the friendliest bees. So you might be able to see that this hive is all honey. So we have some capped honey in the top corner, and then the rest of it is uncapped honey that the bees will hopefully start capping soon. And that's what the other side looks like. I should actually just take this whole top box off because I forgot that the Formic Pro is in between these two boxes. So I'm going to do that right now. So this is just what the Formic Pro looks like. And because these bees are always so angry, I usually just look for the brood right in the middle and then scrape all this extra stuff off so I don't squish any. So there's no way that you'll be able to see the eggs in here, but this frame is full of brood and of all different size brood too. So what I find the easiest if you're not able to find the queen or eggs right away is find a frame that's like this that has brood of all different sizes and just work your way to the smallest egg. So normally you'll find capped brood and then you'll find brood that's almost going to be capped, and then if you keep going you'll find like the larva when they're like C-shaped, and then eventually you'll find eggs. So that's what I did here. There's some eggs in this top corner here. Alright, so now that I found eggs, I'm going to put the other box back on and then put this honey super behind me on top. Alright, so that's it for the June 17th garden tour. I'll be back in 3 weeks. Hopefully the garden will be really lush when I get back, and hopefully it's just not the quack grass that's looking lush. Thanks again for hanging out with me today, and I will see you in a couple weeks. Happy gardening!